The grand ballroom of the Elara Hotel looked perfect at 9:47 p.m. The chandeliers were bright. The music was soft. The guests moved in slow circles, holding glasses of wine, laughing at things that were not that funny. Serena Diallo stood near the side wall with a radio clipped to her hip and a checklist running through her head. She was not a guest. She was the reason this night was working. The flowers were in the right place because of her. The catering team was moving on time because of her. 200 people were having a beautiful evening, and not one of them knew her name. That was the job. She was good at it. She was turning to check on the bar station when she felt it. A hand. On her wrist. She knew the grip before she even turned around. She had spent 4 years learning the weight of it. The way it always started gentle. Just fingers. Just a light hold. The kind that looked like nothing to anyone watching. The kind that felt like everything to her. She turned. Ethan Prescott stood there smiling. He wore a dark suit. His hair was neat. He looked exactly like the man she had married, and nothing like the man she had learned he was. "We need to talk," he said. His voice was warm. It always was in public. "You have been avoiding me." "Let go," she said. She kept her voice flat and quiet. She was at work. There were 200 people in this room. She was not going to fall apart here. His fingers tightened. And then a voice came from somewhere behind her. It was not loud. It did not need to be. It moved through the music and the noise the way a knife moves through still water. "Touch her again and you are finished." Ethan went still. Serena turned. The man standing about 10 feet away was tall, Korean, dressed entirely in black. He was watching Ethan the way a person watches something they have already made a decision about. He was not angry. His face was calm. His eyes were steady. That stillness was the most frightening thing she had ever seen. Ethan let go. The man in black did not look at Serena. He did not ask if she was all right. He simply turned and walked away, back into the crowd, and was gone. Serena stood in the middle of the ballroom. The music kept playing. The guests kept laughing. Nobody around her had even noticed. She pressed her hand flat against her side and breathed in slowly. For the first time in 2 years, the breath came all the way in. The rest of the night passed the way a dream does when you are trying to hold on to it. The speeches ended. The guests left. The catering crew broke down the tables. Serena walked the ballroom one final time, checking corners, checking nothing, really just moving because standing still felt impossible. She had built this life carefully. After the divorce, after the long quiet of picking herself back up, she had made a decision. She would keep things small, manageable. She would work hard and go home and not let anyone get close enough to do what Ethan had done. The Elara Hotel was one of the best event venues in the city, and she was its best coordinator. That was enough. It had to be. But now a stranger had stepped into the middle of her carefully managed night and said 4 words that she could not stop hearing. She did not know his name. She did not know why he had done it. She only knew that when Ethan's hand had been on her wrist, her whole body had been bracing for what came next. And then, just like that, it was over. 12 seconds. That was how long it had taken from the moment he spoke to the moment Ethan walked away. She had counted without meaning to. She was packing up her clipboard near the staff exit when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned quickly, her whole body tensing. It was David Lim. "Long night," he said, smiling the easy smile he always wore. David worked in hotel sales, 2 floors above her department. They had known each other for almost 3 years. He was smooth and social and always seemed to show up exactly when things were most interesting. "It was fine," she said. He fell into step beside her, tucking his hands into his pockets. Relaxed. Unhurried. "Quite an entrance from that guest earlier," he said. "The one in black." Serena looked at him. His eyes were moving through the room, scanning, as if looking for someone. "I didn't notice," she said. David smiled like he did not believe her. He said goodnight and peeled off toward the elevator. She watched him go. She had not noticed many things about the man in black. Not his face, exactly. Not his name. But she had noticed the way David's eyes had tracked him across the room like a compass finding north. She filed that away. She did not know what to do with it yet. She walked out into the cool night air, alone, and the city was loud and bright around her. She thought about the grip on her wrist. She thought about 12 seconds. She thought about the fact that for the first time in a very long time, she had not been the only person in the room who noticed what Ethan was doing. She did not thank him. She did not even know who he was. But she thought about it all the way home. 3 days later, Serena's manager dropped a new file on her desk. Baek Junho, her manager said. Private event. 2 days. He asked for our best coordinator, and that is you. Do not mess this up. Serena opened the file. The event was a closed business dinner for 40 guests. High-end. Specific requirements. The name at the top meant nothing to her. She met him the next morning in one of the hotel's small meeting rooms. He was already seated when she walked in, reading something on his phone. He looked up when she entered. He was the man from the ballroom. She stopped for just a moment. She was sure of it. The height. The way he sat. The stillness that came off him like temperature. She sat down across from him and opened her folder. Mr. Baek, she said. I am Serena Diallo. I will be your lead coordinator. I know, he said. That was all. He did not explain it. He did not bring up the ballroom. He looked at her like it was simply a fact he had already gathered, and then he turned to the event brief. They worked through the details for an hour. He was direct. He asked clear questions and expected clear answers. He did not waste words. Serena found herself responding the same way, matching his pace without thinking about it. There was a woman beside him throughout the whole meeting, Korean, a few years older than Serena, with her hair pulled back sharply. She watched Serena with steady eyes and said almost nothing. Her name was Young Heron, and she took notes in a small black book without looking down at the page. When it was over and Serena was gathering her folders, Baek Junho said one more thing. You are good at this, he said. Not flattery. Just an observation, the way someone notes the weather. Serena looked at him. It's my job, she said. He nodded once and left. Young Heron followed without looking back. That evening, Serena sat on her couch with leftover rice and her phone and tried to think about anything except the meeting. Her phone buzzed. Fatu. How was your day, my love? Serena thought about Mr. Baek and his flat voice and the way the room had felt smaller when he was in it. Fine, she said. Busy. There was a pause. Then Fatu said, in her careful way, You sound different. I am tired, Serena said. Said Fatu. She had known Serena for 29 years. She knew the difference between tired and something else. She did not push. She simply waited, on the other end of the line, warm and patient. Serena stared at the ceiling. Good night, Auntie, she said. Good night, my love. Serena set the phone down and sat in the quiet of her apartment. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, something she could not name sat at the edge of her thoughts and would not move. David Lim suggested lunch the way he always suggested things. Casually. Like the thought had just come to him. Serena said yes because she had known him for years and because saying no to David required more energy than just going. They sat at a small restaurant 2 blocks from the hotel. He ordered for both of them without asking, which she had always let slide. He talked about the hotel, about a difficult guest on the 4th floor, about his weekend plans. He was easy company. He always had been. Then, somewhere between the soup and the main course, he said it. So, Baek Junho. Serena picked up her glass. He is a client. Of course. David smiled. Interesting man. You know he runs most of the private investment activity in this part of the city? Very quiet about it. Very careful. I am his event coordinator, David. Not his banker. Right. He twirled his fork. I just remember seeing him at the gala last week. And then I saw him watching you. She kept her face still. And Ethan was there too, David continued, as if connecting 2 unrelated facts. Which was a little tense, I imagine. She looked at him now. He was eating, not looking at her, perfectly comfortable. How do you know Ethan was there? She asked. Oh, I ran into him after, he said. We got a drink. He asked about you. I told him nothing, obviously. He shrugged. He is not doing well, Serena. He looks rough. She said nothing. I think he misses you. That is not my problem, she said. David nodded. He moved on to other topics. By the time the meal ended, Serena could not point to a single thing he had said that was wrong. But she left the restaurant with a heavy feeling sitting in her chest that she could not explain. That afternoon, she and Beck met again to go over the table arrangements. They walked through the private dining room together, and she was pointing to the placement of the long center table when he stopped and asked, out of nowhere, "Do you enjoy this work? The planning, the details?" She looked at him, surprised. "Yes," she said after a moment. "I like making things work." He looked around the room. "I can see that." Then he turned and pointed to the far wall. "Move the display there. It will draw the eye when guests enter." She made a note. They kept walking. When she looked up again, he was watching her, not the room. She pretended not to notice. He did not bring it up. Neither did she. But when she got home that night and sat on her couch, she realized she had spent the whole walk back thinking not about Ethan or David or the lunch that had left her unsettled. She had been thinking about a man who looked at her like she was someone worth looking at. She pressed a pillow to her face and told herself to stop it. The note was on her desk on a Thursday morning. It was in a plain white envelope with her name written on the front. No stamp. No return address. Someone had placed it there while the office was empty. She opened it with her letter opener and read it once, and then she read it again. It said, "You should not be so close to him. Walk away while you still can." That was all. Her hands were steady. She was proud of that. She put the note back in the envelope and walked down to the security office and handed it over without letting her voice shake. The security manager said he would look into it. He had the face of a man who believed it was probably nothing. She nodded and went back to work. 2 days later, she was walking to her car in the hotel parking structure when a black SUV reversed out of a space too fast and came within 3 feet of hitting her. The driver did not stop. The plates were covered. She stood in the concrete quiet of the parking structure and breathed. It could have been nothing. People drove badly all the time. She chose to believe that because the other option was more frightening than she was ready for. She told no one except security, and even then she said only that a car had reversed recklessly. She did not connect it to the note. She did not want to connect it to anything. What she did not know was that 4 floors above her, in a meeting room that overlooked the city, Baek Joon-ho was already looking at a photograph of the SUV. One of his people had been in the structure. He had the plate run in under 2 hours. He sat at the window after the meeting ended and said nothing for a long time. Young Hae-rin stood near the door, waiting. "She does not know yet," he said. "No," said Hae-rin. "I want 2 people on her. Quiet. She should not see them. And if she asks?" He looked out at the city. "She will not ask because she will not know." Hae-rin wrote something in her small notebook and left. That evening, Serena's phone buzzed with a call from Ethan. She stared at his name for the full length of 4 rings. Then she put the phone face down on her coffee table and turned up the television. The phone buzzed twice more before it stopped. She sat very still in her apartment with the television on and did not move for a long time. She was fine. Everything was fine. She repeated that to herself until she almost believed it. It was a small thing that gave it away. She was leaving the hotel one evening when she noticed a man sitting in a parked car across the street. He was reading a newspaper. She would not have thought anything of it except that the same man, same car, same newspaper had been there 2 days before. People did not sit in parked cars reading newspapers for 2 evenings in a row. She changed her usual route home. The car did not follow. But the next morning there was a different man near the staff entrance, leaning against the wall with his phone. She walked past him and then turned back. "Excuse me," she said. He looked up. Young. Neat. Gave nothing away. "Are you watching me?" she asked. He looked at her for a moment. Then he said, "Mr. Beck asked us to keep an eye on you." She thanked him very politely and went straight up to the meeting room where Beck was reviewing the final layout for his event the following week. She closed the door behind her. "You put people on me," she said. Not a question. He looked at her from across the table. He did not look surprised. "Yes." Without asking me. "Yes." She put both hands flat on the table. She was not going to shout. She was not going to cry. She was simply going to be very clear. I left one man who made decisions for me without asking. I will not stay in a situation where another one does the same thing. Beck set down his pen. He looked at her the way he always did, steady and direct, but there was something else in it now. Something careful. There was a note on your desk, he said. There was a car in the parking structure. She stared at him. I know about both, he said. And I know where they came from. So no, I did not ask you. Because asking would have taken time, and time was not something I wanted to spend. The room was very quiet. That is not the point, she said, but her voice was smaller now. He leaned forward slightly. I know what it costs to be the one nobody protected. She had nothing to say to that. The words landed somewhere inside her and stayed there. She straightened up. She looked at the wall behind him instead of at him. I would like you to tell me next time, she said. That is all I am asking. He nodded. All right. She walked out. She did not tell him to remove his people. She did not know if she was more angry about the surveillance or about the fact that she was not entirely angry. She walked to the elevator and pressed the button and stood there, and she realized he had noticed that too. He noticed everything. She was not sure yet if that was a good thing or not. Fatou Diallo arrived on a Friday afternoon with 2 large bags, a jar of homemade pepper sauce, and the expression of a woman who already knew more than she had been told. She was Serena's mother's younger sister. She was 54 and wore her gray hair natural and short, and she looked at people the way a doctor looks at an X-ray, calmly, clearly, without needing to be shown where to find the problem. She put her bags down in Serena's spare room and came out to the kitchen and sat at the counter. Tell me, she said. There is nothing to tell, said Serena, pouring tea. They ate dinner. They talked about family, about Fatou's garden and lion, about the small easy things that build up a conversation. And then, around the time Serena got up to clear the plates, Fatou said, Who is he? Serena kept her back turned. A client. Serena. She set the plates in the sink. She ran the water a little longer than she needed to. Then she turned around and leaned against the counter and crossed her arms. His name is Baek Junho. He is hosting an event at the hotel. That is all there is. Fatou looked at her for a long, quiet moment. Then she said, You are not afraid of him. I barely know him. That is not what I said. Fatou folded her hands on the counter. You are not afraid of Baek Junho, Serena. You are afraid of wanting someone again. The kitchen was very quiet. That is not the same thing, Serena said. No, said Fatou. It is worse. Serena did not have an answer. Fatou did not expect one. She simply stood and took the kettle and made herself another cup of tea, and they sat together in a silence that was not uncomfortable. That same night, an event at the hotel ran over by 2 hours. Serena stayed to manage the close. By the time the last guest left, it was past 11. She was sitting at the bar in the now empty lounge, filling in her incident log, when she heard footsteps and looked up. Baek Junho sat down 2 seats away from her. He did not explain why he was still there. He ordered a drink from the bartender who was wiping down the other end of the bar. They sat in silence for a while. Not uncomfortable silence. The kind that 2 people only share when they have stopped pretending they need to fill it. You are still here, she said. So are you, he said. She looked back down at her log. But she did not write anything. He did not move closer. She did not move away. The bartender quietly stopped wiping and disappeared into the back. Nothing happened. No declarations. No touching. Just 2 people sitting in the same quiet space with the same quiet understanding that something between them had already changed, even if neither of them was ready to say its name. Serena was not in this chapter. She did not know it was happening. Young Heron set the file on the table at 7 in the morning. It was thin. 3 pages. But each page had taken a week to put together. Beck read it without speaking. The short version was this. David Lim had been talking. Not to enemies, exactly. More like to people who were curious and who paid for information the way others pay for a newspaper. He had mentioned Serena's name. He had mentioned her connection to Beck. He had not understood what he was doing, perhaps. Or he had understood perfectly and told himself it did not count because he had not meant harm. Either way, the information had traveled. And the people it had reached were not casual. There was more. Ethan Prescott had made contact with a man named Cho, who handled certain interests that ran alongside Beck's in the city. Not an enemy outright. More like someone who watched from a distance and collected small advantages wherever he found them. Ethan had gone to Cho through a mutual contact. He had asked about Beck. He had made it clear that Serena was the point. Beck put the file down. The threat to Serena was no longer just a note and a reckless car. It had a shape now. It had people behind it. He sat for a long time. Outside, the city was just beginning to wake up. Traffic sounds came up from the street. A delivery truck. Someone's radio. He turned to Heron. I need to tell her, he said. Not asking. Not deciding. Saying it out loud for the first time. Heron was quiet for a moment. Then she said something she had never said to him about anyone before. She deserves to know. He looked at her. That was not the kind of thing Heron said. She spoke in strategy and logistics and what needs to happen. She did not speak in deserve. She met his eyes and did not take it back. He nodded. He picked up the file again and read it through one more time. He needed to know every detail before he sat down in front of Serena and told her the truth. He owed her that. Not a summary. Not a version he had softened. The actual truth. He thought about the way she had looked at him when she found out about the surveillance. Furious. Then controlled. Then, for just a moment, something close to frightened. Not of him. Of what it meant that someone was watching her at all. She deserved to know the full size of it. He would tell her today. He asked to meet her after her last appointment of the day. She came to his private room on the 3rd floor thinking it was about the event. She had her folder. She had her pen. He waited for her to sit down. Then he said, put the folder away. This is not about the event. She put it away. He told her everything. He told her what he was. Not in the way a person confesses, looking for forgiveness. In the way a person states facts because the other person needs to hold them. He ran operations in the city that did not appear in any business registry. He had interests in things that governments preferred not to look at. He had people who worked for him and who solved problems in ways that were not always peaceful. He told her this the same way he told her everything else, plainly, without decoration. Then he told her about David. What David had shared, with whom, and what it had set in motion. Then he told her about Ethan and Cho, and what Ethan had asked for, and what that meant for her. He did not soften it. He did not leave anything out. When he was done, the room was quiet for a long time. Serena was very still. She was looking at the table. Finally, she looked up. Why are you telling me this, she said, instead of just handling it. He did not answer right away. He let the question sit. Because you are not something that happens to, he said. You are someone who decides. She looked at him for a moment that lasted longer than a moment. I could leave, she said. Yes. Would that make me safe? He was quiet for a beat. Less safe than staying. More safe than you feel right now. But I would not stop you. And I would not lie and say it would be simple. She turned away from him and looked at the window. The city outside was bright and busy and completely indifferent. She thought about the note on her desk. The car in the parking structure. The way Ethan's hand had felt on her wrist at the gala. The way things had been closing in around her, slowly, for longer than she had admitted. She thought about 12 seconds. She stood up. I need some time, she said. Of course. She picked up her folder. She walked to the door. She stopped with her hand on the handle. She did not leave. She stood there with her back to him for a full 10 seconds. Then she turned around. Tell me the rest, she said. All of it. He nodded and began again from the beginning. It happened on a Tuesday evening. Serena was leaving through the hotel's side entrance, the one she had used for years because it was close to the parking structure. She had her bag on her shoulder. She was thinking about a supplier call she had forgotten to return. The side entrance opened onto a narrow street. She had barely stepped out when she saw the car parked at an angle at the end of the block, blocking the path to the structure. 2 men were leaning against it. They were not pretending to be there for any other reason. She turned to go back inside. The door did not open. Someone had locked it from the other side. She heard footsteps behind her and turned. Ethan. He looked worse than the last time she had seen him. Thinner. His eyes were too bright. He was holding himself like a man who had made a decision he was still trying to believe in. I just want to talk, he said. That is all. 5 minutes. Ethan. You will not even look at me anymore, he said. You changed your number. You moved. You act like I am nothing. Ethan, stop. I did nothing that other men do not do. And there it was. The thing he always eventually said. The thing that was supposed to make her doubt everything she knew. She looked him in the eye. Let me pass. He stepped forward. And then, from the far end of the narrow street, a car turned in. Black. Slow. It stopped 10 feet away. The door opened and Baek Junho stepped out. He did not run. He walked. Calm and steady, exactly as he had been in the ballroom. He stopped between Serena and Ethan the way he had done before, and the two men at the end of the street took one look at who had just arrived and got back into their car. Baek looked at Ethan. He said nothing. He did not need to. The silence did what words would have taken longer to do. Ethan's face went through several expressions. Then the brightness in his eyes became something smaller. He stepped back. This is not over, he said. Baek said quietly, it is. Ethan left. Serena stood in the empty street and breathed. Baek turned to her. He looked at her the way he always did, but there was something in it now that was not quite controlled. Something that had been pressed back, but was still visible if you knew where to look. Are you hurt? He asked. No, she said. She meant it. She looked at him in the dim light of the street. She had seen who he was now, all of it. The power and the risk and the cold certainty. She was not pretending it was something else. She was not telling herself a safer story. She looked at all of it clearly. And she did not step back. Thank you, she said. Quietly. Plainly. He nodded. He moved to stand beside her, not in front of her. That small difference was everything. My car is this way, he said. She walked with him. The city was quieter now. Not silent. It was never silent. But the particular kind of noise that had been building around Serena for months had stopped. Ethan was gone. Not from the city, but from her life, completely and finally. Whatever conversation Baek had arranged after that Tuesday evening, it had been enough. Ethan had not called, had not appeared, had not sent a message. He was gone the way a door is gone when you close it properly. David Lim was no longer at the hotel. He had accepted a position in another city. The speed of it suggested the decision had not entirely been his own. Serena's days had the shape of normal days again. She managed events. She drank her morning coffee. She talked to Fatu on Sundays. The guards Baek had assigned were still there, quieter now, more distant. The threat had not disappeared entirely, and she understood that it might not ever. That was the honest version. She had chosen to accept the honest version. One evening, about 3 weeks after the Tuesday in the narrow street, Baek asked her to come to his apartment. Not for a meeting, just to come. She went. The penthouse was the kind of space that made you feel the city was something you were above rather than inside. She had been there twice before, both times quickly, for practical reasons. Tonight there was no agenda. He had made tea. That surprised her a little, the small domesticity of it. They sat across from each other for a while without pressure. She told him about a difficult client. He told her, briefly, about a deal that had gone cleanly. Small things. Real things. Then he set his cup down and looked at her. I do not want you here because you are grateful, he said. I do not want you here because it is safer than somewhere else. And I do not want you here because of what I did. She listened. If you stay, he said, I want it to be because you choose to. Because of what this is. Between us. Not because of anything else. The room was still. She thought about all the ways she had gotten to this moment. The ballroom. The parking structure. The corridor with the empty long table where something had shifted between them without either of them saying a word. She thought about the narrow street and the way he had stood beside her instead of in front of her. She thought about the things she had been afraid of. Not him. The wanting. Fatu had been right about that. She looked at him. I know, she said. 2 words. Quiet. Completely steady. He looked at her for a moment. Something in his face eased in a way she had not seen before. Not a smile, not quite. But the absence of the wall. She stayed. 3 days later, a text arrived on Fatu's phone. 3 words from Serena. You were right. Fatou read it once. She set the phone face down on her kitchen table. She picked up her tea. She looked out at her small garden in Lyon, at the late afternoon light on the leaves. She smiled. She did not reply. She did not need to. She already knew.